The galaxy used to be a quiet place. For centuries, the Galactic Federation, a group of 5 advanced alien races, ruled the stars when humans first arrived from Earth. We were the new kids. We weren't the strongest, and we didn't have the oldest technology, but we had something they lacked: adaptability. When the Void Eaters, a mindless swarm from outside the galaxy, attacked, the Federation was terrified. Their high-tech shields were failing. Their logic-based tactics were useless. They turned to us. "Help us," they said. "If you fight on the front lines, we will give you a permanent seat in the High Council. We will share our energy technology with Earth." We believed them. For 5 years, human soldiers bled in the cold dark of space. We lost millions of lives. We used our primitive but effective kinetic weapons to tear through the Void Eaters. We saved their home worlds. We saved their children. But the day the last Void Eater hive ship was destroyed, the Federation changed. The betrayal. I was standing on the bridge of the UEFS Retribution when it happened. Admiral Marcus Thorne, a man with more scars than medals, was looking at the view screen. We were expecting a celebration. Instead, we saw the Federation fleet, our allies surrounding us. Holographic projector flickered to life. It was High Counselor Varkas, a spindly, blue-skinned alien from the Zool race. "Admiral Thorne," Varkas said, his voice cold and robotic. "The war is over. The threat is gone. But we have realized that humanity is too dangerous. You are too violent, too fast, and your population grows too quickly. You are a threat to the stability of this galaxy." Thorne narrowed his eyes. "What are you saying?" "Varkas, we just saved your skins." "We are saying," Varkas replied, "that your services are no longer required. All human ships must power down their engines and prepare for boarding. Your colonies will be dismantled, and your people will be relocated to a single system under our protection. If you refuse, we will fire the trap." They didn't wait for an answer. Before Thorne could even speak, the Federation fleet opened fire, but they didn't use lasers. They used ion pulses. They knew our ships were weakened from the war. Bam! The Retribution shuddered. All the lights turned red. The hum of the engine died. "Status," Thorne yelled. "Engines are dead, sir. Shields at 10%. The comms officer shouted. "They've sent a virus into our network. They used the repair nanites they gave us last month to sabotage our systems from the inside. They hadn't just attacked us. They had planned this for months. While we were fighting their war, they were building a cage for us across the sector. Thousands of human transport ships and colony hubs were being seized. They took our fuel, our food supplies, and our communication arrays. They left us with nothing. They thought that without their advanced technology, we would crawl back to Earth and slowly fade away." The human response. Varkas appeared on the screen. "One last time, do not be sad, Admiral. You are lucky we let you live. But from today, the stars belong to us again. You have nothing left to fight with." The screen went black. The bridge was silent. Everyone looked at Admiral Thorne. We were drifting in space, surrounded by enemy ships that were now moving away, laughing at us. We had no fuel, no long-range comms, and no advanced Federation weapons. Thorne walked over to a small locker at the back of the bridge. He pulled out an old-fashioned physical cigar, a luxury from Earth, and Lit it, they think we have nothing. Thorn said, the smoke curling around his head. They think because they took our shiny toys and our plasma cores, we are beaten. He looked at the crew. His eyes weren't full of fear, they were full of a dark burning fire. The Federation forgot one thing about humans, Thorn whispered. We didn't start with plasma, we started with rocks and sticks. And when someone takes our house, we don't cry, we build a bigger one and take theirs. He turned to the chief engineer. Sarah, can we still access the emergency manual overrides, the old mechanical ones? Tara, yes sir, she said, wiping grease from her forehead. They disabled the digital systems, but they didn't touch the old hydraulic levers. They probably don't even know what they are. Good, Thorn smiled. Was a terrifying smile. Call all remaining ships on the shortwave radio frequencies, the ones used in the 20th century. The aliens won't be listening there. Tell them the plan has changed. What is the plan? Sir, I asked. Thorn looked out at the glowing lights of the Federation's rich cities in the distance. They took our future, he said, so we are going to take everything, every ship, every mine, every credit. We aren't going home. We're going shopping. That was the day the Great Reclamation began. The aliens thought they had won because they took our technology. They didn't realize that a hungry human with a wrench is much more dangerous than a soldier with a laser. The Federation made a fatal mistake. They assumed that because we were low-tech, we were helpless. They saw our ships as scrap metal, floating in the dark, but to a human engineer, scrap metal is just a weapon that hasn't been put together yet. The secret frequency. For 3 days the UEFS Retribution drifted to the alien scanners. We looked like a dead ship, but inside the corridors were buzzing with silent energy. We weren't using the Federation's glowing blue power grids. We were using old-school copper wires and backup diesel generators. Tech so ancient, the aliens didn't even recognize the heat signatures. Admiral, Chief Engineer Sarah whispered, the shortwave radio is working. I've reached the ironclad, the Vanguard, and the mining colony on Asteroid 9. Thorn nodded. Tell them to stay dark. No lights, no signals. We are going to hit the Zool energy depot on the moon of Xylos. That's where they're keeping the fuel they stole from us. Sir, I interrupted. Xylos is protected by a Class 5 AI defense shield. We don't have the codes anymore. Thorn smirked, tapping his temple. We don't need codes. We have a human viruses that no AI can calculate. The heist begins. We didn't fly to Xylos using engines that would have alerted their sensors. Instead, we used a gravity slingshot. We turned off all power and let the gravity of a nearby gas giant pull us toward the moon. We were a 50,000-ton ghost falling through the sky. As we approached the depot, the massive alien structure came into view. It was a beautiful tower of glass and light filled with millions of gallons of star fuel. Now, Thorn shouted, we didn't fire lasers, we fired harpoons. Massive heavy steel cables with magnetic tips. Clang, clang, clang. The harpoons pierced the glass walls of the depot. The Federation's AI was confused. It was programmed to block energy beams and hacking attempts. It didn't know how to react to a giant piece of sharpened metal hitting it. It was like a supercomputer trying to fight a caveman with a club. The chaos. Breach team go. I led the squad. We didn't wear fancy light armor. We wore heavy, thick lead-line suits. We swung across the cables like pirates from the old Earth oceans. When we hit the glass, we used thermite, a simple chemical mixture to melt through their indestructible shields. Inside the Zool, guards were panicking. They reached for their DNA-coded pulse rifles, but Sarah had already done her trick. She hadn't hacked their system. She had simply overloaded the local gravity sensors. Suddenly, the Zool guards who were used to perfect stable gravity were floating uncontrollably, but we humans, we had spent months training in zero-G gyms on Earth. We were used to the chaos. Secure the tanks, I yelled, firing my old-fashioned lead bullet pistol. The sound was deafening. The Zool had never heard a gun before. To them it sounded like a thunderclap. Taking everything. We didn't just take the fuel. Thorne's orders were clear. Take everything. We attached massive thrusters to the entire fuel storage wing of the building. We literally cut the building in half. Admiral, the storage wing is detached, Sarah reported. Hook it to the ship, Thorne commanded. The Retribution fired its old mechanical thrusters. With a massive groan of metal, we began to tow the entire alien fuel depot away into the darkness of space. By the time the Federation's warships arrived, we were gone. All they found was a half-destroyed building and a note painted in giant white letters on the remaining glass wall. Thanks for the gas. We'll be back for the tires. The aftermath. Back at our secret rallying point, the human fleet was cheering. We now had enough fuel to power our ships for a year, but more importantly, we had captured their repair droids. Thorne stood in the cargo bay looking at the thousands of tiny alien robots we had kidnapped. They thought they could lock us out of the galaxy, Thorne said to the crew, but they forgot that humans are the best thieves in existence. We aren't just going to fight them. We are going to dismantle their empire, bolt by bolt, until they are the ones drifting in the dark. The betrayal had hurt us, but it had also woken up the apex predator of the stars. The humans were no longer soldiers for the Federation. We were the owners of the great reclamation. Next on the list, the Zool Central Bank. After the fuel heist at Xylos, the Galactic Federation was in an uproar. They called us space pirates and primitive thieves. High Counselor Varkas put a massive bounty on Admiral Thorne's head, but they still didn't take us seriously. They thought we were just desperate. They were wrong. We were calculated. Target Ethligard. Ethligard was the jewel of the galaxy. It was a planet-sized city that acted as the central banking hub for all 5 Federation races. Every digital credit, every physical Lumina crystal, their version of gold, and every trade contract was stored in the great archives of Ethligard. If we take the crystals, we can buy any weapon we want from the black market dealers in the Outer Rim, Admiral Thorne explained to the commanders of the human fleet. But if we take the data, we own their history. The low-tech Trojan horse, the Federation security was legendary. They had life-sign scanners that could detect a single heartbeat from orbit. They had logic gates that could block any AI-driven hack, so we didn't use a ship. And we didn't use an AI. We used a comet. We found a massive ice comet heading toward Ethligard's sun. We hollowed out the center of it and stuffed it with 50 of our best Infiltrators led by me. We turned off every single electronic device. We sat in the freezing dark breathing through old-school oxygen tanks for 12 hours as the comet drifted past. The planet's orbital defenses, the Federation scanners, saw the comet. Their AI labeled it as natural space debris. They didn't even look twice. When the comet entered the upper atmosphere, we hatched the drop. We ejected from the ice shell in wing suits, simple fabric suits that allowed us to glide through the air without engines, no heat signature, no radar footprint. We looked like giant birds falling from the stars. We landed on the roof of the central bank at midnight. Thermal charges ready, Sarah whispered over a wired headset. No radio waves for them to track. Crack, the roof didn't blow up, it melted. We dropped into the main vault chamber. It was beautiful, rows upon rows of glowing blue lumina crystals, worth trillions, but we weren't there for the shiny rocks, the data ghost. While the team started loading crystals into vacuum bags, I ran to the central core. This was the heart of the Federation's economy. I didn't try to hack it. You can't hack a Zool core with a human laptop. Instead, I pulled out a magnetic pulse induction coil, a device that creates a massive, localized magnetic field. Sarah, start the mirror program, I commanded. We weren't stealing the data by downloading it. We were using the magnets to print a physical copy of the server's magnetic state onto a blank lead plate. It was like taking a giant stamp of the entire bank's memory. Suddenly the alarms screamed. The Zool guards, tall, four-armed aliens with glowing stun staffs, burst into the room. Human scum. The leader yelled, drop the crystals and die. The human trick. I looked at the guard and smiled. We aren't here for the crystals, buddy. I hit the eject button on my belt. Suddenly the entire bank floor began to vibrate. We hadn't just come to steal, we had brought a gift. Outside on the street level, the human mining ships, the ones the Federation thought were scrap, had attached massive industrial magnets to the building's foundations. Rumble, crash, the entire vault floor, 10 floors of solid metal, was ripped downward, falling into the sewer tunnels. We had spent 2 days digging with industrial lasers. The Zool guards fell with us, screaming as they lost their balance. We used our magnetic boots to stay upright in the darkness of the tunnels. Our night vision goggles gave us the advantage. Pop, pop, pop. Our silenced pistols took them down before they could even see us. The great disappearance. By the time the Federation police reached the sewers, we were gone. We had loaded the vault floor onto a massive underground maglev train, an old piece of infrastructure the Zool had abandoned centuries ago. We didn't just take their money, we took the property deeds. The next morning, High Counselor Varkas woke up to a galaxy-wide broadcast. It wasn't a threat, it was a legal notice. Admiral Thorne appeared on every screen in the Federation. He was holding a glass of wine and a stack of digital papers. Attention, citizens of the Federation, Thorne said calmly. According to your own laws, Section 4, Article 9, the owner of the physical original deed owns the land and well. I'm currently holding the deeds to your 3 biggest mining planets, 2 sun collectors, and the High Counselor's private summer villa. He took a sip of his wine. Technically, you're all trespassing on human property now. You have 24 hours to pay rent in the form of military tech and warships, or we start the evictions. Federation had betrayed us to save their power. Now they were realizing that in a galaxy run by laws and money, the humans had just become the ultimate landlords. High Counselor Varkas made a televised speech. The human landlords are a joke, he sneered. We do not pay rent to monkeys. We pay in fire. He sent 20 Zool dreadnoughts, massive sleek ships that could crack a planet's crust to the human rallying point near the Uit cloud. They arrived with their shields at 100% and their plasma cannons glowing red. The silent trap. When the Federation fleet arrived, they found nothing. No human ships, no stations, just empty space. Scan for heat signatures. The Zool Admiral commanded. Nothing, sir. The technician replied, wait, I'm picking up thousands of tiny signals. They look like frozen water. The Federation's advanced sensors ignored them. To their AI, it was just space ice. But inside those blocks of ice were human saboteurs. We had covered our small boarding pods in layers of frozen CO2 and ice to match the temperature of deep space. We were invisible to their high-tech thermal cameras. The cold boarding, as the massive dreadnoughts drifted through the ice field, we fired small compressed air thrusters. No fire, no heat. Just a puff of cold air to push us toward the enemy hulls. Thump. I was in Pod 7. We hit the side of the Zool flagship, the Star Crusher. We didn't use drills. Drills make noise and vibration. Instead, we used gallium liquid. We poured the liquid onto their indestructible aluminum alloy hull. In minutes, the metal became as brittle as a dry cracker. Crunch. We snapped a hole in the ship and climbed inside. Chaos in the corridors. The Zool were prepared for a space battle, not a hallway fight. Their ships were designed for long-range laser duels. The corridors were wide and built for comfort, not defense. We burst through the vents. We weren't using energy shields. We were using flashbangs and smoke grenades. I can't see. My sensors are blinded. A Zool guard screamed as the thick gray smoke filled the deck. To an alien who relies on visual augmentation, smoke is a nightmare. To a human who grew up playing hide-and-seek in the dark, it's home. We moved like shadows, using simple stun batons and zip ties. We neutralized the crew deck by deck. We didn't want to kill them. Dead pilots can't teach you how to fly. The hijack. On the bridge, the Zool Admiral was frantically hitting buttons. Override. Lock the engines. Self-destruct. Too late, pal. Admiral Thorne's voice came over the ship's own intercom. Thorne hadn't boarded a ship. He was sitting in an old human ham radio room on an asteroid, but he had Sarah. Sarah had found a back door. She hadn't hacked the Zool computer. She had hacked the maintenance droids we stole in Part 2. Thousands of those little robots were now crawling inside the Star Crusher's computer brain, physically pulling out wires and rerouting them to a human-made control box we had brought with us. Admiral, I called out into my radio. The bridge is ours. The Star Crusher is now a human ship, the Grand Theft Starship. Across the fleet, the same thing was happening. One by one, the glowing blue lights of the Federation dreadnoughts turned human orange. The Zool pilots were forced into escape pods and launched back toward their home world. They watched, crying in shame, as their own invincible fleet turned around and warped away. Message. An hour later, Varkas received a ping on his private terminal. It was a video from Admiral Thorne, sitting in the captain's chair of the Federation's own flagship, Varkas. Thorne said, leaning back comfortably. You said you'd pay in fire. Well, your ships have excellent firepower, thanks for the donation. Thorne pointed the camera out the window. Behind him, 19 other stolen dreadnoughts were lining up. Now Thorne continued, his voice turning cold. You've lost your bank. You've lost your fuel, and now you've lost your primary fleet. We have everything we need to build our own empire. But we're not done. You still have your food synthesizer hubs on planet Ceres. And we're feeling a bit hungry. The Federation was officially in a panic. They had tried to treat us like a minor threat. Now they were realizing that they hadn't just betrayed an ally, they had accidentally built and funded the most dangerous army in the galaxy. In the galaxy, nobody farms anymore. The Federation races, the Zool, the Xylos, and the Krill rely entirely on molecular food synthesizers. These massive machines, located on the garden planet Ceres 2, turn raw energy and basic minerals into steak, fruit, and nutrient pastes. If we control Ceres 2, High Counselor Varkas told his remaining generals, the humans will have to beg for a biscuit. They can steal our ships, but they cannot eat metal. He was right about one thing. We were hungry. But he was wrong about how we would get our dinner, the dirty tactic. We didn't send our newly stolen dreadnoughts to Ceres 2. That would have been too obvious. Instead, we used our old Earth trash during the Void Eater War. Humanity had thousands of garbage barges, huge ugly ships used to haul waste away from the front lines. The Federation ignored them. To them, garbage was invisible. Inside those barges we hadn't stored trash, we had stored earth, soil, and insects. The biological strike, we didn't drop bombs. On Ceres 2, we dropped eco-pods as the garbage barges flew over the vast synthesizer fields of the planet. We released millions of tiny, genetically modified earth locusts in a fast-growing earth weed known as kudzu. Admiral, I reported from the surface of the planet, hidden in a forest of alien purple trees. The green menace has been released. Within hours, the alien synthesizers began to choke. These machines were designed to work in sterile environments. They couldn't handle the messy biology of Earth. The vines grew into the cooling vents. The locusts crawled into the circuitry. The Federation's perfect food machines began to grind to a halt. The service call. The Zool scientists panicked. They didn't know how to deal with pests. They had lived in clean labs for thousands of years. Suddenly, a signal broadcasted across the planet's comms. It was Sarah pretending to be an automated Federation repair service. Attention Ceres 2 hub. Her voice was disguised by a modulator. Biohazard detected. Please evacuate all personnel to the safety bunkers. We are sending the cleaning drones to sanitize the facility. The terrified Zool workers fled. They didn't check IDs. They just ran the takeover. The cleaning drones were actually human engineering teams in white hazmat suits. We walked right through the front gates of the galaxy's largest food factory. Look at this, Sarah said, pointing to the massive central processor. They have enough protein stored here to feed Earth for a century, and the best part, they've encrypted the food recipes, but They left the bioprints open. We didn't just steal the food, we did something much worse for the Federation. We reprogrammed the synthesizers. Bitter taste of defeat. 24 hours later, the Federation army arrived to take back the planet. We were already gone, vanishing into the clouds in our barges. Varkas ordered the synthesizers to be restarted. Immediately, feed the troops, he commanded. I want them ready to hunt. The humans, the machines hummed. First batch of food came out. It looked like the usual Zool delicacies, but when the High Counselor took a bite of his favorite xylo fruit, he immediately spat it out, gagging. What is this? He screamed. Every single machine on the planet, the only source of food for trillions of aliens, had been locked into a single setting. No matter what button you pressed, the machines only produced one thing: human marmite and ghost pepper sauce. It was edible, but to the sensitive taste buds of the aliens, it was like eating liquid fire mixed with salty tar. The hostage situation. A message appeared on the High Counselor's screen. It was Admiral Thorne eating a very juicy, perfectly synthesized Earth-style apple. Hey Varkas, Thorne said, wiping his mouth. I heard the new menu is a bit spicy. Don't worry, we kept the sweet and savory codes for ourselves. If you want your taste buds back, you're going to have to give us the navigation charts for the Great Nebula. Thorne took another bite. Or you can get used to the spice. I hear it's great for the sinuses. The Federation was now hungry, angry, and humiliated. We had taken their fuel, their money, their ships, and now we had taken their very ability to enjoy meal. Humanity wasn't just winning the war, we were making the Federation regret they ever met us. The Federation High Command was in a state of emergency. High Counselor Varkas was trying to organize a grand alliance meeting. He needed to talk to the kings and leaders of the other 4 races to convince them to launch a final desperate attack on Earth. Use the subspace array, Varkas ordered. Send an encrypted priority signal. Tell them we meet at the neutral zone in 2 cycles. The weakness of light. The Federation's communication system was beautiful. It used pulses of light sent through artificial wormholes. It was nearly instantaneous. But because it was so advanced, it was incredibly fragile. It relied on sync stations, massive satellites that kept the light pulses timed perfectly. Admiral, Sarah said, pointing at a holographic map of the galaxy. If we take out those 3 sync stations, the entire Federation goes dark. They won't even be able to send a text message to the next room. We aren't going to destroy them, Thorne said, sharpening a small combat knife. If we destroy them, they'll just build new ones. We're going to reroute them. Operation Echo. We didn't use our stolen dreadnoughts for this. Instead, we used tugboats. Small, powerful engines usually used to move space debris. We painted them matte black so they wouldn't reflect any light. I led the mission to Sync Station Alpha. It was a giant golden ring floating in the void. There were no guards, only automated turrets, because the Federation thought no one would be crazy enough to attack a station that didn't even have any gold or fuel on it. Turrets are active, my pilot whispered. Don't shoot back, I ordered. Launch the chaff. We fired canisters filled with millions of tiny pieces of aluminum foil. The Federation's high-tech targeting lasers hit the foil and scattered The turrets were blinded by their own reflections. It was a $5 solution to a $500 million defense system, the hijack. We landed on the station, and Sarah plugged in a device we called the human filter. We didn't stop the Federation's messages. We let them through, but we added a delay. Every message sent by Varkas was now being intercepted by our ship, edited by a human team, and then sent back out. The chaos begins. Varkas sent a message to the Krill Emperor. We must unite to destroy the humans. Bring your fleet to the neutral zone. But the message the Krill Emperor actually received was, the humans have paid us. We are going to attack the Krill homeworld tomorrow. Prepare to die. At the same time, we sent a message to Varkas, pretending to be the Krill. We are joining the humans. Your empire is over, Varkas. The result: for the next 12 hours, the Federation fell into complete madness. Neighbors who had been allies for 1,000 years began to aim their guns at each other. They were screaming into their radios, but all they heard were insults and threats, which we were writing for them. Admiral, I laughed watching the scanners. The Zool and the Xylos are currently arguing over who stole whose lunch money. They've completely forgotten about us. Thorn nodded. Silence is a powerful weapon. When people can't talk, they start to imagine the worst, and right now we are their worst nightmare. The final twist: once the Federation was busy fighting among themselves, we did the final move. We didn't just edit their messages, we stole their identity keys. Every bank account, every door lock, and every automated factory in the galaxy required a digital signature from the High Council. By hijacking the sync stations, we now had those signatures. Varkas tried to log into his personal terminal to call for help. A message popped up on his screen. Error: identity not recognized. This terminal now belongs to the human reclamation front. Please enter your password to continue. Hint: your password has been changed to "We are sorry humans 123. The High Counselor sat in his dark office, realized his lights were turned off, his bank was empty, his ships were gone, and now he couldn't even prove who he was. Humanity had turned the entire galaxy into a giant prank call, and the Federation was the punchline. The High Council of the Federation kept their most prized possessions in the Vault of Ages on the planet Primus. This wasn't a bank for money, it was a bank for legacy. It held the original crowns of ancient kings, the first blueprints of their warp engines, and the soul cores of their ancestors, digital memories of their greatest leaders. If we lose our history, Counselor Varkas whispered to his shivering guards, we are nothing but ghosts. Protect the vault at all costs. The invisible invasion: we didn't send soldiers, we didn't send hackers, we sent the janitors, because the Federation's economy had collapsed. Thanks to us, they had fired all their expensive security droids. They were forced to hire cheap labor to keep their museums clean. A group of Xylo workers arrived at the Vault of Ages. They wore masks, carried mops, and spoke in low alien grunts. The guards didn't even look at them. Why would they? They were just cleaners. Except under those masks were Admiral Thorn, Sarah, and me. The swap: we spent 3 hours cleaning the main gallery, while Sarah used a portable scanner to create perfect 3D holograms of the artifacts. I was busy with the human touch. We weren't just stealing The items, we were replacing them with Earth junk. We took the golden scepter of the Zool Empire, a symbol of their divine right to rule, and put it in a bag. In its place, we put a plastic yellow broom handle spray-painted gold. From a distance in the dim museum light, it looked exactly the same. We took the first warp engine blueprint and replaced it with a child's drawing of a rocket ship colored with crayons. We took the soul cores, the digital memories, and replaced them with USB drives containing nothing but a 1-hour loop of Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. The reveal, we walked out of the front door with the history of the galaxy in our trash bags. Nobody stopped us once we were safe on the Retribution. Thorn gave the order. Turn on the planetary broadcast. Let's show them who really owns the past now. Suddenly, every screen on the planet Primus flickered. Instead of the usual Federation news, it showed Admiral Thorn standing in our cargo bay, surrounded by their most sacred treasures, people of the Federation. Thorn said, holding up the real golden scepter. You told us we were a minor race. You told us we had no culture, no history worth keeping. You tried to erase our future. He dropped the scepter into a crate marked property of Earth. Well, it turns out your history is pretty easy to carry. Since you couldn't protect your past, we've decided to look after it for you. If you want your soul cores back, you're going to have to ask nicely. Collapse of spirit. The news spread like wildfire when the high-ranking Zool priests rushed to the vault to check their treasures. They found the plastic broom handle. When they tried to consult their ancestors for advice, they were met with a 1980s pop song. The psychological blow was more devastating than any bomb. The citizens of the Federation stopped believing in their leaders. If the High Council couldn't even keep a scepter from being replaced by a broom, how could they rule a galaxy? The new history. Thorn turned to me as we watched the Federation systems descend into riots. You know what the best part is? What? Sir, I asked. We aren't just taking their stuff. Thorn smiled. We're opening a museum on Earth. We'll charge them admission to see their own history. It's called The Cost of Betrayal exhibit. Humanity didn't just have their ships and their food anymore. We had their identity. The Federation was no longer an empire. They were just a group of people living in a galaxy that was rapidly being renamed the Terran Sector. High Counselor Varkas had retreated to the Zool home world. He sat in a bunker, watching the Aegis network on his screen. Let them come, he hissed. These satellites are hardwired. No hacking, no human filters. If a human bolt enters the zone, it is destroyed instantly. He was right. We couldn't hack them, but we didn't need to. The low-tech solution. Admiral, I said, looking at the glowing red grid of the enemy defenses. If we fly in there, we're toast. Those lasers can melt steel in half a second. Thorn didn't look worried. He was holding a small shiny object, a simple hand mirror. What happens when you shine a flashlight at a mirror, son? It bounces back, sir. Exactly. Thorn grinned. Sarah, bring in the glitter bombs. Silver Cloud, we didn't send warships. We sent cargo containers filled with trillions of tiny microscopic glass beads coated in highly reflective silver. We launched these containers from long range using railguns. When they reached the edge of the Aegis network, they exploded, creating a massive shimmering cloud of space dust that surrounded the entire planet. The satellite's AI detected objects and fired their high-powered lasers to destroy them. Zap, 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 but the lasers didn't burn the dust. Instead, the light hit the silver-coated beads and reflected. The lasers bounced off the dust, hit other beads, and eventually bounced back toward the satellites themselves. Self-destruction. It was a feedback loop of light. Within minutes, the Aegis network was blinded by its own power. The satellites began to overheat and explode as their own reflected beams melted their sensors. The shield is down, Sarah shouted. But more importantly, we've got a clear path to the atmospheric stabilizers, the ultimate ransom. Every advanced alien planet uses atmospheric stabilizers to keep the weather perfect. No storms, no heat waves, just 22 degrees C. And a light breeze every day. We didn't land our army. We sent a single drone to the main stabilizer hub. We didn't blow it up. We just installed a thermostat. A message popped up on the High Counselor's bunker screen. It showed a simple dial with two options: Ice Age and Sahara Desert. Below the dial was a note from Admiral Thorne. It's getting a bit chilly in here. Varkas, we've locked your planets. Weather, if you want us to turn the heater back on, we need the master keys to every orbital shipyard in the sector. You have 10 minutes before we start the snowfall protocol, the surrender of the skies. Inside the bunker, the temperature began to drop. The Zool, who were cold-blooded creatures, began to shiver. They couldn't fight a war if they were frozen solid. Varkas looked at his generals. There was no pride left in his eyes. He realized that the humans weren't just fighting a war, they were playing a game, and they had changed the rules at every turn. Give them the keys, Varkas whispered, his teeth chattering. Give them everything. Taking the factories. By the end of the day, humanity didn't just have ships. We had the shipyards. We now owned the factories that built the Federation's technology. We weren't just the landlords or the pirates anymore. We were now the industrial powerhouse of the galaxy. The Federation was now officially working for us. High Counselor Varkas sat in the Great Hall of the Federation. On the planet Primus, around him sat the representatives of the 4 other races. They were wearing their ceremonial robes, but they looked pathetic. Some were wrapped in blankets because we still controlled their thermostats. Others were eating the spicy marmite we forced their synthesizers to make. We must declare a state of total sovereignty, Varkas announced, his voice trembling. We must pass a law that makes human ownership of our assets illegal. The legality trap. They thought they could use law to stop us. They forgot that humans have been practicing law for thousands of years. While they were talking, we were filing paperwork. Suddenly, the massive holographic doors of the Great Hall swung open. I didn't walk in with a gun. I walked in with a briefcase. Behind me were 10 human lawyers, men and women in sharp suits carrying tablets and stacks of physical paper. Who are you? Varkas demanded. This is a closed session of the High Council. Actually, I said, leaning against the counselor's podium, this is a meeting of the board of directors, and you're sitting in our chair. The fine print. The alien counselors looked confused. One of the human lawyers, a woman named Elena, stepped forward. Counselor Varkas, she said calmly, when you Signed the Mutual Defense Pact with Earth 10 years ago. You included a clause in the fine print, Section 88. Paragraph B. It states that in the event of a systemic failure of Federation logistics, the primary contractor, Earth, would assume temporary administrative control of all government assets to ensure stability, but there is no systemic failure. Vargas yelled, "Sir." Elena smiled thinly. "You have no currency, no military, no food supply, and your communication network is currently playing 80s pop songs. If that isn't a systemic failure, I don't know what is." The hostile takeover. We didn't need to fire a single shot. We had used the Federation's own obsession with order and process against them. According to the records we recovered from your archives, I added, the High Council's building, the ground it sits on, and even the air you are currently breathing are technically leased from the Human Reclamation Front, and since you haven't paid rent in 3 cycles, I pulled out a small electronic device and pressed a button. Click. Holographic symbols of the Federation, the stars and the ancient crests, flickered and vanished. In their place, the United Earth logo appeared on every wall and screen. The dissolution effective immediately, I announced to the silent room. The Galactic Federation is dissolved. It has been declared bankrupt morally, financially, and logically. This building is now the Human Administrative Office for Galaxy Sector 1. The guards looked at Vargas, then at us. They saw our lawyers, our technicians, and the human dreadnoughts visible in the sky above. They didn't raise their spears, they simply laid them on the floor and walked out. Vargas slumped into his chair. "You took everything," he whispered. "You didn't just kill us, you erased us." "No," I corrected him. "We didn't erase you, we just put you under new management. You're still here, you just don't own the chair you're sitting in anymore." The new order. By sunset, the High Council was gone. The leaders were given small apartments and pension plans paid in our new currency. The galaxy didn't collapse into chaos. In fact, things started running better. The ships moved on time, the food was distributed fairly, and for the first time in centuries, there was no High Council taking a cut of everyone's hard work. Humanity was no longer a member of the galaxy. We were the owners, but there was one final thing left to do. We had the power, we had the assets. Now we had to decide what to do with the betrayers themselves. The galaxy was quiet for the first time. In 1,000 years, there were no border disputes, no trade wars, and no secret alliances. Why? Because you can't argue with the person who owns your oxygen, your bank, and your history. The final meeting. Admiral Thorne stood on the balcony of the former High Council building on Primus. Below him, the city was bustling. Human engineers were working alongside Zool workers to repair the infrastructure, but today was a special day. Today was the day of audit. Vargas, the former High Counselor, was brought to the balcony. He wasn't in chains. He was wearing a simple, clean suit. He looked older, tired, but safe. "Look at them," Thorne said, pointing to the streets. "They're actually happy. The Krill are trading with the Xylos. Again, no more political taxes or galactic fees, just honest work. I love it." Did Vargas sigh? "You took our pride, Thorne. You made us beggars in our own homes." "No," Thorne turned to face him. "We took your greed. We made you realize that being advanced doesn't mean you get to step on the new kids' We were your allies, Varkas. We bled for you, and you tried to throw us away like trash. The sentence, so? Varkas asked, looking at the human fleet. Patrolling the skies, what is our final fate? Are you going to exile us to the dead moons, or are you going to use us as labor? Thorn laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh, it was the laugh of a man who had already won the ultimate game. We're humans, Varkas. We don't like keeping slaves, it's too much paperwork, and we don't like exile. It's a waste of talent. No, your sentence is much worse. Thorn handed Varkas a digital tablet. From today, the Zool homeworld is being rebranded. It is now a nature preserve and tourist destination. You and your people will stay here. You will manage the forests, you will protect the wildlife, and you will host the millions of humans who want to come here for vacation. Varkas blinked. You're making us tour guides. I'm making you responsible, Thorn corrected. You wanted to be the masters of the galaxy. Now you can be the masters of this one. Garden, we've taken all your weapons, all your warships, and all your high-tech labs. We've moved them to Earth, the capital of the stars. As Thorn spoke, a massive shadow covered the city. It wasn't an alien ship. It was the UEFS Legacy, the first ship built entirely in the captured Federation shipyards. Using human imagination and alien physics, Earth was no longer a minor planet. It was the central bank, the central armory, and the central library of the known universe. All roads, or rather all warp gates, now led to Earth. We took everything from you, Thorn continued, so that we could give the galaxy a fresh start, a human start. We've turned your empire into a community, and the best part, we're charging a 5% service fee for everything. We are humans after all. The human spirit. I stood behind the Admiral, looking out at the stars. I remembered how we felt when they betrayed us. We felt small, we felt alone. We felt like the galaxy was a cold, dark place, but we didn't stay small. We grew, we adapted, we stole, we hacked. We bargained, and we fought until the cold dark belonged to us. Admiral, I said, the first transport of Earth students has arrived. They're here to study the ancient alien ruins in the museum. Thorn smiled and lit his cigar. Tell them to enjoy the tour, and remind them if they see a blue-skinned guy named Varkas, they should tip him well. He's had a very long year. The legacy, the story of the human reclamation, became a legend that lasted for 10,000 years. It was a story told to every alien child. Never betray a human, because they won't just fight you, they won't just beat you, they will take your house, your car, your lunch, and your history, and then they'll hire you to keep the grass cut. The galaxy was finally at peace, and for the first time, it was a human peace.